The Buckeyes took care of business against the Akron Zips. How did the quarterbacks look with Kyle McCord and Jack Miller both getting their first play of the season? And one outburst from a linebacker finds him getting himself kicked off the team. All that and more in this episode of Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Sunday, September the 26th in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast or if you're watching us on YouTube or WKYC.com, I want to thank you for making this podcast and this show the first listen and watch of your day. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how the quarterbacks, Kyle McCord and Jack Miller III, looked in Saturday's game, as well as talk about one linebacker who had a major outburst on the sidelines, who has now been dismissed from the team. But before we get to any of that, we want to open the show talking about the Buckeyes, who went into the shoe on Saturday night in prime time on the Big Ten Network and took care of business. This is one of those things that I believe many people watching or listening to this show, you are very happy that Ohio State took care of business against the Akron Zips. You might be like me and say, Jay, Ohio State should have had a blowout. A shutout. They had a blowout. They should have had a shutout. And I will say, you are exactly correct. Yes, they had the one touchdown Akron did towards the left side of the end zone. But outside of that, that game was Ohio State from start to finish. Yes, you would have liked to see better throws, not a backwards pass was turned into a fumble for Kyle McCord, an interception thrown by Kyle McCord. You would have liked to see more crisp plays from him. But a true freshman quarterback who starts the game. To all of the numerous individuals that played in Saturday's game, Ohio State took care of business, and that is one of the many takeaways we can have from this game. Let's talk about the aggressiveness from the defensive line. Ohio State have shown that, well, we're going to blitz a couple linebackers at times, but the one thing we want to do is try to drop back the other 7 guys on defense and focus on the front 4 and say, we want you to get a pass rush. No, not want. We need you to get a pass rush. You getting a pass rush makes things a whole lot easier for the other guys on the defense that are behind you, and we're going to put the focus on you. We need you guys to be aggressive. We need you guys to do your job. We need the pocket to collapse. We need pressure up the middle. We need the defensive ends to squeeze in that pocket so the quarterback has nowhere to go. To the tune of 9 sacks from Ohio State. They had numerous sacks. They had numerous guys that were doing their job. From Tyleik Williams, who had 2 sacks, Haskell Garrett, who had 3, to Jack Sawyer, who had his first sack of his career, Antoine Jackson, defensive tackle, had a sack as well. Ty Hamilton had a sack. Jerron Cage, who was hurt earlier in the season, had a sack. That's where things start to get positive. That's where things start to progress. That's where things are right now. We see once the guys up front, the hog mollies, the hogs, whatever you want to call it, defensive linemen, some call them slobs, whatever you want to call them. When they do their job, the guys behind them, it's a whole lot easier for them to do theirs. We saw a lot of guys get their first run in this game. We saw a lot of guys get their first tackles of the season, first yards of the season, first touchdown of the season as well. Tyleik Williams, I know he has played before, but I really like what we're seeing from him. Led the team in total tackles in 6 steel chambers. Led the linebacker group in tackles in this game with 5. Demario McCall had 4 tackles of his own. Taraja Mitchell back in on the in play had 4 tackles. Court Williams had 3. Marcus Williamson got a lot of play in this game. He had 3. Numerous guys all over the place had their hands already put in place all over this game. Kyle McCord, 13 of 18, 319 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Jack Miller III, 5 for 8, 66 passing yards through the air, no touchdowns or interceptions. Henderson had 2 rushing touchdowns. Master Teague had 2 of his own, and true freshman running back Evan Pryor had his first trip to pay dirt. There was a lot of good that went on. Yes, I have notes sitting right next to me. We can talk about McCord and his throwing. We'll do that here in a little bit. Talk about the amazing throw and some of the things we saw from Jack Miller III. We're going to do that too. However, one thing I think we can all take away from this game is this. In a matchup where Ohio State, depending on what sportsbook you look at, they were close to 50-point favorites in this game. Close to not covering the spread at the end of the game, but they do. If you're a betting man, you bet the over in this one, congratulations. If you bet the under, it's unfortunate, but you live to fight another day. Ohio State, offensively, defensively, there are things to improve on. There are things you can like in this game. There are things you can take away and say, didn't like it. But all in all, you want Ohio State to come into a game and to dominate, destroy, and completely obliterate the opposition. That's what Ohio State did in this game. It's nice to have it done in prime time. It's nice to have it done in a time when it's supposed to happen. At the same time, it's also nice to see all of the youngsters, all of the guys that haven't got much clock, much run. Emeka Egbuka, 85-yard catch, almost took that bad boy to the house in the second half. It's nice to see all of these things happening right before our eyes. It's unfortunate C.J. Stroud's shoulder kept him out of this game, but it's also nice to see that there are 2 backup quarterbacks. Yes, they're going to go through growing pains just like C.J. Stroud. The growing pains, they're expected, but also what's expected is Ohio State dominating an opponent they're supposed to dominate. Let's take one quick time out. When we come back, we will look at McCord and Miller and see how did they look in their first action of the season. But first, check this out. If this is your first time checking out Locked On Buckeyes, I want to say welcome. Or if it's your first time in a long time, Jay wants to say welcome back. Locked On Buckeyes drops a fresh new episode for you every Monday through Friday with 3. Planning on having 3 live shows a week. There was a little hiccup with Saturday after the game, which is why there was no live post-game show. But there was planning to be a couple live shows a week every single week, every Tuesday, every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, Locked On Buckeyes, and on my personal Twitter page at jstevens07. Make sure you do follow on Twitter, you subscribe, hit the bell on the YouTube so you're alerted every time the podcast goes live. Oh, one other thing, thank you for making this podcast the first to listen or watch of your day. Anytime you get a guy who has not played football before and he is getting his first action of the season in whatever sport, if it's basketball, there are going to be guys that are going to get their first play of the basketball season. Collegiate basketball play this year, there's going to be Jamari Wheeler, who is going to get his first play as a Buckeye this year, transferring from Penn State. On the football side, is all eyes are on the quarterback. How did the guys look? I say guys plural because Stroud did not play. If you had not heard, if you happened for some reason to miss the game, either life happened or something happened where you weren't able to watch the game, C.J. Stroud's shoulder, Ryan Day announced it earlier in the week that his shoulder, they had been resting him, and it was to a place in the game that they were playing in the weekend was a matchup where they could rest C.J. Stroud, bring in McCord and Miller to see what they have in their backups. Now, going into the game, I expected, maybe you expected, if Stroud was healthy, Stroud may play a half, he may play 2.5 quarters, but eventually one of the backups would come in. What do we find in this game? Kyle McCord got the start, played about 2.5 quarters or 2.25 quarters, and then Jack Miller III played the rest of the way. Quinn Ewers is not up to speed just yet. Is not going to play anytime soon as of right now, based off his evaluation and how quickly he is picking up the things that Ohio State is throwing at him. Kyle McCord, am I upset with the interception throw? Not really. That's going to happen. Am I upset with Kyle McCord and the backwards pass? Not really. I'm not really upset. I'm just going to try to use these things as learning moments, teachable moments. There was one time, the interception that he threw that was just a plainly bad pass, a plain bad throw. Just one of those things where you may see it. You may see, Kyle McCord may have seen the defender and how that may have been a bad decision to make and a bad throw to make, but he still did that anyway. And it's one of those where Ryan Day is going to look at him, and Ryan Day, if it were CJ Stroud, he's going to approach Stroud differently. He's going to approach McCord. So he looks at Day, looks at McCord, and basically looks at him and wants to go off on him, but he realizes this is his first time playing college football. His first time playing is also under the lights. His first time playing is also under 95,000 fans. So all of these different factors are going into his first time playing like college football. The adrenaline is pumping. The emotions are there. So yes, Ryan Day could have ripped into him and pulled him out and said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" But he asked him, "What did you see?" And in those moments, is a teachable moment. Ryan Day could have said, "Here's what you did wrong. Here's why you don't make this maneuver, and here is the correct thing to do." But instead of telling him, he let McCord teach himself and use McCord's own eyeballs to say, "This is what I saw. This is why I did what I did." And Ryan Day says, "Okay, well, here's some X, Y, and Z about why that was a poor decision." Maybe McCord realized it was bad as soon as the ball came out of his hand or beforehand, but he wanted to try to be a gunslinger. We're just not sure, but it's a teachable moment for everyone. I do think Jack Miller, we talked about this in July. Yes, we did a week-long thing on the quarterback competition. In July, we talked about how Jack Miller III, I always put the suffix on because your boy likes to be different. Jack Miller III in the read option game, he is the best quarterback on this team for that. Yes, better than Stroud, better than McCord. The skill sets are different. Jack Miller III is the best in the read option game, quarterback-wise, that we have on the team. We saw that on Saturday evening. He also had a beautiful back shoulder throw that he had, I believe it was in the fourth quarter. And that's something that I believe that's something that you work on in practice, and then you try to do the things you do in practice in the game. We saw that, hey, he made those phenomenal throws. Once Kyle McCord started to get into a rhythm, we saw some phenomenal throws, some good rhythm throws. He started to get into a groove. Those are things you want to see. Yes, Stroud starts off slow at times. McCord starts off slow at times. Think about this, though. The first few plays in any game are scripted. So the first, First five plays of any game. I forget what I said previously. First 5 plays of any game are scripted. So the first 10 to 15 in most places. First 5 plays of the last game where Travion Henderson started. First 5 plays were runs. We had a pass, incomplete, and then we ended up punting the ball. Ohio State that was. In this game, it was a run with Travion Henderson. I think he got 12 or 13 yards on that run. And all of a sudden, what happens? Pass. You would think that you would get some more runs in to ease McCord into the game and to try to slow him down a little bit because his emotions are going to be high. Plus, you had success with Henderson. But instead of the first 5, Ryan Day said, "Hey, how about we just test his arm out early?" That's how he thought it was going to be. The throws weren't pretty. I thought on the backwards pass that was a fumble, ruled a fumble because it was a backwards pass. I thought the ball slipped out of his hand. Even if it did, it was still a good spiral, but it definitely looked like there was a little slippage, I thought, maybe, with what was there. Also when I saw the replay, I was like, nah, that was just a really, really, really bad throw. But these are teachable moments for everybody involved. Ryan Day is going to learn a lot about himself and the other individuals that are on this team, about what they have as far as the quarterback position. I still think CJ Stroud is the best quarterback to put in right now. He also has the most experience. And I don't think in 2.5 quarters of what we saw on Saturday, that McCord or Miller did enough to dethrone CJ1 as QB1 with this team. Now, over time, over the next few weeks, you got Rutgers, you got Maryland with Talea Tagovailoa, who I do believe will be the best quarterback that Ohio State will face. That will be a tighter, possibly a tighter contest than anybody thinks it will be. There may be times against Rutgers. I do think Rutgers can't score the ball, so I do think that'll be a matchup. Even though they're more physical, that's a matchup I do think Ohio State will be able to play a backup quarterback if the D-line continues to be aggressive like they were against Akron, to where you may see a McCord or a Miller in the second half spin the rock a little bit and see what they have more in a back-to-back game setting. But right now, I do think it's C.J. Stroud. I think it's his game. I think Miller is a bigger competitor and a bigger piece of this quarterback competition than anybody gave him credit for. He has a lot that he brings to the table. McCord's arm, it's good. But when it comes to a game setting, you got to calm that boy down. Maybe a few more run plays and let him get into the swing of things. Let's take one more time out. When we come back, we're going to discuss a major blow up that happened in the latter part of the second quarter, where a linebacker got mad, said something on Twitter, and now he has been dismissed from the team. But first, check this out. And as we wrap up this episode here of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, guys, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this show. There will be a live show coming up Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Got two phenomenal guests lined up for us on Tuesday and Thursday's shows. Thursday previewing the Rutgers game with a beat writer from NJ.com. On Tuesday, have a man that covers the individual that covers the Big Ten football conference that's going to help us get ready for the rest of Ohio State's football schedule. So in the second quarter of Saturday night's game, I don't know why I want to say Tuesday. That's why it was a long pause right there. In the second quarter, latter part of the second quarter of Thursday, wow, my days are all off. On Saturday night's game, there was a little discussion, a little dispute, which led to a blow up, which led to somebody being dismissed from the sidelines during the game, and now he has been dismissed from the team. Ohio State linebacker, former Ohio State linebacker, got to be correct, Kayvon Pope has been dismissed from the football team because of a dispute and a little misunderstanding and a little frustration boiling up and letting his emotions get the best of him. I want to read tweets that come right from Austin Ward, Ohio State football beat writer for Letterman Row, and let his words, who I have found he has the best kind of sequence and wording on Twitter as far as what transpired between Kayvon Pope and what exactly happened leading him to being dismissed from the sideline on Saturday. These next words are right from Twitter, right from Austin Ward, who works for LettermanRow.com. Quote, I think Kayvon Pope just quit the team in the middle of the game. Pope tried to run out on the field in a sub package. Taraja Mitchell waved him off, and Pope stormed down the sideline, started walking to the tunnel, and then had to be coaxed back by an Ohio State staffer. He tossed his gloves into the stands and took off his jersey. He has now been told to leave the Ohio State sideline, and C.J. Barnett is taking him to the locker room. This is absolutely wild. End quote. C.J. Barnett is the player development new man that was recently hired by Ohio State in the offseason, which is why C.J. Barnett is the individual that was responsible for Kayvon Pope in this situation. The sub package that was going on, I got a little bit more watching some things, and I got a little bit more understanding about what exactly happened in this moment. The sub package that is mentioned by Austin Ward in these tweets, it was something that where if you see something from Akron, this individual, this subgrouping, these players want to come in, ex-players want to come out to swap. So there's 11 on the field. However, what they thought they saw, Akron changed the look. They didn't need said sub package, and so Kayvon Pope was no longer needed on the field. If you think about it, this week you also had Dallas Gann, who entered the transfer portal on Wednesday, for-year player, a little disgruntled, probably a little frustrated about the amount of playing time or lack thereof that he has gotten this season. Kayvon Pope as well, a little frustrated about the lack of playing time he has received this season. Many people have said they thought Kayvon Pope would be utilized more in pass coverage, but you have seen the Ohio State defense really look a whole lot better at times, especially in this game on Saturday. Of course, when you're up a lot and you're playing a lesser opponent and the D-line's that aggressive, the linebackers, things are going to happen. Cody Simon had an interception. I believe Ronnie Hickman had a pick six as well. So the starters, Simon and Mitchell, have showed they need to start. Ronnie Hickman has showed he deserves a spot to start as well. So if I'm Kevon Pope, I'm frustrated too. I've been here for a while. Had to wait around behind guys. 3 of the 4 guys that I waited behind last year are now in the National Football League. Last year, I want to say something here very quickly about this linebacker position. Last year, Ohio State did not play their best 3 linebackers consistently. I think Justin Hilliard should have played more last year. If you take out Tough Boiler, you put in Justin Hilliard, I think the defensive linebacker position will have looked a whole lot better than it did this year. There were times Ohio State has not played the best linebackers. That's not me saying Gant and Pope deserve to be on the team, on the field, but that's going to bring a lot of frustration when the players are in practice. We are not in practice. But we're seeing a lot of things where it brings a lot of frustration. Our frustration is one thing. When you're on the team, that type of frustration is something else. On Sunday afternoon, Ryan Day put out a statement, and a statement from Ohio State head coach. I'm going to read the statement about Kevon Pope and his dismissal from the team. Quote, senior linebacker Kevon Pope has been dismissed from the Ohio State football team. Kevon will continue to have the use of programs that benefit our student athletes, such as our Student Athlete Support Services Office, and we will support him with his progress toward graduation. He will remain on scholarship during the duration of this semester, end quote. I think that's a phenomenal thing and a wise thing, a couple wise things that Ryan Day is doing here with the Ohio State football situation with Kevon Pope. Number one, the fact that he will continue to have the use of programs that benefit the student athletes. Yes, I understand that people don't like the word student athletes, and the NCAA put that into action and practice for a certain reason. However, these guys are students first because, as we know, most of these individuals will go pro in something other than football. So why don't you make sure your education is proper? You graduate, you get your degree, so that if you don't go professional in something that is sports and football, you have the educational backing to help you in your future career. Allowing him to have those resources still, I think it's a phenomenal move by Ryan Day and the football program as well. Him remaining on scholarship. Now, Ryan Day, he could have removed the scholarship based off that outburst, based off how some things were, how he looked at it. That would be a very, very big financial hole that his family would currently be put in. But Ryan is to say, hey, man, I get it. School's a lot. We will help you. We will allow you to remain on scholarship throughout the rest of the season, rest of the semester. But once this semester is up, you are on your own based on how things have transpired. And I'm sure there's more things that have happened in practice or behind closed doors that nobody knows about right now that have not been put on Front Street just yet. However, phenomenal statement from Ryan Day. Unfortunate outbursts and unfortunate things happening from Kevon Pope in this game. I get the frustration. A lot of guys will be frustrated. The transfer portal is there. I don't like the transfers in the middle of the season. I'm not a big fan of the transfer portal to begin with, but it's there. You could have been a person like Dallas Gant that instead of having this outburst decided, well, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to enter the transfer portal and go about my business and doing that thing. You did not. Kevon Pope no longer with the team. It's unfortunate in a blowout win like that. This is what a lot of people, not just locally, but also around the country, are going to be talking about. Guys, thank you for enjoying another episode of Locked on Buckeyes. You can always follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Email me, jstevens317@gmail.com. Text me, 850-462-5442 as well. Guys, we will be back live on Tuesday evening. A show Tuesday, that'll be live at midnight, but we'll be live Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking more about this football team. It's the things that maybe positive or negative, we will talk about in the highline going into the next game. But before we wrap up the show, one quick reminder that betting on the Ohio State Buckeyes does not have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag wherever you get your fine podcast.